Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're diving into a truly disturbing and chilling case that rocked the quiet city of Palm Springs back in 2016. This is the story of Scott Pettigrew, a man who turned a favor into a nightmare, ending in the brutal murder of his 66-year-old landlady, Anita Cowen. Imagine this: you open your home to someone you think you can trust, only for them to betray that trust in the most horrific way possible. Anita Cohen thought she was helping out a coworker by renting him a room, but Scott Pettigrew had other plans. What started as a simple rental agreement quickly spiraled into a series of terrifying events that would ultimately lead to murder. On June 14th, 2016, police were called to Anita's home after a heated argument broke out between her and Pettigrew. What they found was nothing short of a horror scene: Anita's lifeless body floating in the pool, covered in cuts and bruises, and Pettigrew lying naked in his bedroom, clearly the aggressor. But how did things get this bad, and what drove Pettigrew to such a violent act? Stay tuned as we unravel the details of this harrowing case, including the shocking events leading up to the murder, the legal battle that followed, and the lasting impact on the community. Trust me, you won't want to miss this. So grab your popcorn, hit that like button, and let's get into the twisted tale of Scott Pettigrew and Anita Cowen. Scott Pettigrew wasn't always the figure of infamy he's known as today. Before moving to Palm Springs, Pettigrew had a relatively quiet life, but there were always undercurrents of trouble. His early years remain somewhat obscure, but what we do know paints a picture of a man struggling to find stability. Pettigrew had a history of financial instability and erratic behavior, which only worsened over time. By the time he crossed paths with Anita Cowen, Pettigrew was already on a downward spiral. Described by those who knew him as unpredictable and often aggressive, his behavior raised red flags for many. Pettigrew was known to have issues with alcohol, which only exacerbated his volatile tendencies. His arrival in Anita Cohen's life marked the beginning of a series of unfortunate events that would culminate in tragedy. Anita Cohen, on the other hand, was a 66-year-old retiree who had spent her life in service to others. Friends and family described her as kind-hearted, always willing to lend a helping hand. When Pettigrew, a coworker, needed a place to stay, Anita saw it as an opportunity to help someone in need. Little did she know that her generosity would lead to her untimely death. Initially, their relationship seemed straightforward, a landlady helping out a tenant. However, it quickly became apparent that Pettigrew was more trouble than he was worth. He stopped paying rent, made the house filthy, and even damaged property. His erratic behavior and threats created a hostile environment that left Anita living in fear within her own home. By June 2016, Anita had had enough. She sought a restraining order against Pettigrew, hoping to regain some peace and safety in her life. The order was served on June 14th, but it was already too late. Pettigrew's anger boiled over, leading to the tragic events that unfolded later that evening. The relationship, which started with a gesture of kindness, ended in a horrifying act of violence. On the fateful day of June 14th, 2016, the atmosphere at Anita Cohen's home was tense and foreboding. The day began with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department arriving to serve Scott Pettigrew with a restraining order. Anita, hoping this would be the first step toward reclaiming her peace, escorted the officers to Pettigrew's room. Pettigrew acknowledged the documents without much resistance and retreated back into his room. As the day progressed, the tension escalated. Anita had a conversation with her son, Stephen, where she expressed her fears and the ongoing issues with Pettigrew. Stephen, concerned for his mother's safety, advised her to turn on an audio recorder as a precaution. He and his wife, Cindy, decided to drive over to Anita's house, feeling the urgency of the situation. Later that evening, while still on the phone with her son, Anita and Pettigrew began to argue. The argument quickly escalated into a violent confrontation. Stephen could hear the chaos unfolding, shattering glass, yelling, and what sounded like a physical struggle. Alarmed, he immediately called the police, urging them to check on his mother. Police arrived at the scene around 11:42 p.m. They found the house in complete disarray, with signs of a violent struggle everywhere. Anita Cohen's lifeless body was discovered floating in the backyard pool, covered in bruises and cuts, with chunks of her hair missing. The house was a mess, with shattered glass and blood smears indicating a brutal assault. Inside the house, police found Pettigrew lying naked on his bed with scratches all over his body. He appeared to be intoxicated and was immediately taken into custody. The evidence of the attack was overwhelming. In the kitchen, they found Anita's audio recorder amidst the debris, which had captured the horrifying sounds of the assault. The recording revealed Anita's desperate pleas for Pettigrew to stop, interspersed with his cruel and taunting responses. The autopsy later confirmed that Anita had died from blunt force trauma. Her injuries were extensive, including severe head wounds, internal bleeding, and signs of strangulation. The brutality of the attack was clear, and it was evident that Pettigrew had unleashed a terrifying level of violence on his helpless landlady. The night of June 14, 2016, ended with Anita Cohen's tragic death at the hands of a man she once tried to help. Pettigrew's violent outburst was the culmination of months of escalating threats and abuse, turning a simple act of kindness into a nightmare. The details of that night paint a chilling picture of the dangers lurking within what should have been the safety of one's own home. The aftermath of Anita Cohen's tragic death saw a swift and meticulous investigation by law enforcement. On the night of June 14, 2016, officers arrested Scott Pettigrew at the scene. He was found naked in his bedroom with visible scratches, a clear indication of a violent struggle. The police secured the area, gathered evidence, and took Pettigrew into custody. As the investigation unfolded, more disturbing details came to light. The digital audio recorder found amidst the shattered glass in the kitchen became a crucial piece of evidence. It had captured the horrifying sounds of Anita's final moments, her desperate pleas, and Pettigrew's chilling responses. This recording, alongside the physical evidence of the disarrayed house and the injuries on both Pettigrew and Anita, built a strong case against him. During the trial, which began in August 2019, Pettigrew pleaded not guilty to the charges of first-degree murder, elder abuse, and violating a protective order. The prosecution presented a compelling case highlighting the pattern of threats and abusive behavior Pettigrew had exhibited towards Anita in the months leading up to her death. They argued that Pettigrew's actions were not only premeditated but also fueled by a deep-seated anger and instability. Key moments during the trial included the playing of the audio recording, which left a profound impact on the jury. The defense attempted to argue that Pettigrew was severely intoxicated and emotionally impaired at the time of the attack, suggesting that his actions were not premeditated. However, the prosecution countered this by pointing out the calculated nature of the attack and the previous threats Pettigrew had made against Anita. After deliberating over the evidence, the jury found Scott Pettigrew guilty of first-degree murder, elder abuse, and violating the protective order. The verdict was a significant moment, providing a sense of justice for Anita Cohen's family and the community. In November 2019, Pettigrew was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Judge Jonetta Anderson, during the sentencing, emphasized the vulnerability of the victim and the breach of trust that Pettigrew had exploited. Pettigrew's legal team filed an appeal in March 2021 challenging the first-degree murder conviction. However, the appeal was denied and the original verdict was upheld. Pettigrew remains incarcerated at the Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison in Corcoran, California, serving his sentence for the brutal murder of Anita Cowen. The murder of Anita Cowen sent shockwaves through the Palm Springs community. Neighbors and friends were horrified to learn of the violent events that took place in what seemed like a quiet and safe neighborhood. The gruesome details of the case left many in disbelief and fear, knowing that such a horrific crime could occur so close to home. Anita Cowen's friends and family were devastated by her tragic and untimely death. They described her as a kind and generous woman who always went out of her way to help others. The fact that her good nature was exploited by Pettigrew made the loss even more painful. Her son, Stephen, who had been on the phone with her during the fatal confrontation, was particularly affected, haunted by the knowledge that he heard his mother's last moments. The media coverage of the case was extensive, with local and national outlets reporting on the shocking details. The narrative of a vulnerable elderly woman being brutally murdered by a man she tried to help captured the public's attention. News reports highlighted the dangers of renting to strangers and the importance of protective measures for vulnerable individuals, sparking discussions about tenant landlord relationships and elder abuse. Public opinion was overwhelmingly in favor of justice for Anita. The community rallied around her family, offering support and solidarity. The case also prompted many to re-evaluate their own safety measures and to be more cautious in their personal dealings with others. In summary, the tragic case of Scott Pettigrew and Anita Cowen is a stark reminder of the potential dangers lurking behind seemingly benign situations. What began as an act of kindness turned into a nightmare, resulting in the brutal murder of a 66-year-old woman in her own home. Pettigrew's history of erratic and abusive behavior culminated in a violent outburst that took Anita's life and left a community in shock. As we reflect on this case, it's essential to remember the importance of vigilance and the need to protect vulnerable individuals. Anita's story serves as a powerful warning about the potential risks involved in opening one's home to others and the necessity of taking precautions. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think there are better ways to protect vulnerable individuals like Anita? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories and updates. Stay safe, everyone.